Welcome to the podcast in my garage.
Anthony's Garage Podcast.
Anthony's Garage Podcast.
Good work on the name, but that's what we're sounding for.
So that's what we're sounding for. So right now we have in the room, we have Jeremy Diaz, Jose Monquilla, we have David Nunez and me, Anthony Vargas. We're having a nice time playing Fortnite. As you can see, David is on the controller. And now we're going to have Jose talk about the essential question and how he feels. In what ways does the struggle for freedom change with history?
So, struggle for freedom changes with history when people are faced with grave injustices that demean them in society and strip them of their rights, which was exactly what happened. And what had been happening ever since the 1770s, 1770s, ever since the start of America, ever since its birth, up until, well, I would say perhaps early 1900s, around that time. Because, while slavery was abolished sometime before then, the discrimination was still running rampant. Two great examples of these, actually there are many great examples, but two of the most major ones that I think are very crucial to talk about would be Brown versus Board of Education. Earl Warren had done a spectacular job with it, and he pointed out how blacks had essentially suffered from the effects of segregation between white and black schools, which was a decision that the Supreme Court had established very long ago. There were similar cases that he used as anecdotal evidence before then, and he pointed out the effects, all of which were, negative. Perhaps most. The only good thing to have come out of it was the performance of black students in their environment. However, socioeconomic conditions were terrible. Society, as we know it, had shifted greatly back then. Blacks, they had to surpass and get through many obstacles, most of which were motivated by racial discrimination. So their busing schedules have been very bad and not very consistent. Let's see. Their education, they did not get as good an education as children in white schools were getting. And the conditions, the schools were not very well kept. They had to be maintained as well as white schools. However, that was clearly not an option for them. They had received far less treatment as opposed to white schools. And Brown v. Board of Education was exactly that. It was a fight in the Supreme Court, a legal fight against the discrimination and injustices that black children, not only the Brown family's own child, but many others in their community had witnessed and had suffered from directly because of the Supreme Court's decision. Now, Lincoln's second inaugural address, that was also a good one, because that was during the Civil War era, around that time. The Civil War, as we know it, was divided between the Union and the Confederacy. The USA was at war with each other. So, Lincoln, to put it simply, he wanted to end the war without bloodshed, and he wanted to end it effectively. Now, they couldn't reach such a result because the Confederacy and white Southerners simply did not want to give up their slaves, and that was a very poor decision because it led straight to the war, and many of them were slaveholders, Southerners, who did not want to give up their slaves. President Lincoln was vehemently opposed to this and wanted to grant them the rights that they deserved. He wanted to free the slaves. However, the Confederacy, while not wanting to give up their slaves, also did not seek to become part of the U.S. again. nation, since the Union was getting in the way of their best interests. So that is why war occurred. However, let's see. What to the Slave is the 4th of July by Frederick Douglass. This one points out the injustices that blacks face and how they're not able to celebrate the 4th of July comfortably and, well, to the fullest as the white man did. The white men were wealthy, they were educated, they had all the advantages that nearly every black man had not had. And this was a very glaring issue, and it was ironic because, well, without blacks, who were technically American, the U.S. would not have gotten anywhere. And Frederick Douglass saw that they had been stripped of their rights and that they deserved to celebrate this, well, in his opinion, this hypocritical holiday. And I think those were the three most compelling points that eventually shaped history as we know it. So, in what ways does the struggle for freedom change with history? Well, the struggle for freedom changes with history when one's rights are at stake. When our human rights are being denied to us, those who have the willpower will stand up for their rights and will fight for them, no matter what they have to do in order to achieve said rights.
And that was Jose's podcast.
We are back with we're joined by Jeremy Diaz. We're joined by Anthony Vargas. We're joined by David Nunez and myself, Jose Munguia. And this time we have our boy David going up. He will be answering the question: in what ways does the struggle for freedom change with history? Go.
All right, freedom. It's a big thing everybody's wanted.
Absolutely.
What is it? America wanted freedom. They wanted the Americans. They wanted freedom from the English. Everybody wants freedom. There's so many revolutions, so many everything, right? And what makes people want that freedom? Well, I'll tell you right now. They want to be treated fair. Fairness is a big thing in the U.S. society. It's a big thing in all types of society. If one person is given 4 loaves of bread, and you're given 2 loaves of bread, and those 2 loaves of bread are rancid or whatever, you're going to be mad that the guy who has 4 nice, fresh baked 4 loaves of bread got more than you, and it's better quality. Well, that's just how any human is. So what I think makes people struggle for change is they're treated unfairly compared to other people that they live with. And that comes to a conclusion with how Frederick Douglass was talking about. Frederick Douglass brought up great points of how slaves were treated terribly during the times of the 1800s. They were beaten, they were hurt, they were broken down as a people. And he came up with this beautiful speech, which was documented as to what to the slave is the 4th of July. In that document, in that speech, which is now a document, he talks about how slaves were treated bad and everything, and how we need change for that. How the black people should rise up, how their voices should be heard, and how they are just as valuable people as white people. Frederick Douglass brings up excellent points in this whole story. He brings up past things that happened, and he brings up one big thing that should be in an argumentative argumentative speech. He brings up a compare and contrast, basically. He says basically, well, everybody's out here celebrating the 4th of July. He hears all the wails and hurt of black people all over the world. So that freedom that the Americans built upon America was built on the tears of black people. And then Frederick Douglass said, hey, you know what? We should be treated just as good as them. Same thing. Abraham Lincoln notices that in the second inaugural address. He notes what Frederick Douglass was saying. He knows that the black people are needed in society. They are as valuable as everybody else. They shouldn't be treated as terribly as they are. And that's what got people to fight back then. That's what gets people to fight now. Everybody fights for what they believe in, and I believe that answers what I had to say about in what way does people struggle for change throughout history, and how does it change? Nowadays, we see the littlest thing, and we find it unfair, and and we fight for it. If it's just everybody's fighting for every little things, like how people are treated from each other, and we still fight for it. Look, we have all these different groups, feminists, Black Lives Matter. We have all these different groups fighting for what they believe in. And another case, more recent, was Brown versus Board of Education, which talks about segregation in schools. The whole case was about, do white people get treated more badly in school than, opposite. Do white people have better chances in white schools than white people do in black schools? And they brought up so many things about how schools were managed and everything. White schools were managed so much better than black schools. Black schools had such a low budget, they had such a low everything, and they just didn't have the same opportunities as white people. And if you saw that, you would fight for it. And I believe Brown versus Board of Education did fight for that, even though it might have been a failure. In Brown versus Board of Education, was it a failure or not? They brought up great points that segregation made things harder and stuff because it just made more problems with the racial community. Because black and white people it made more fighting between them and everything. But I believe it did cause some black people to do a lot better in school. At the beginning, Brown versus Board of Education was a failure, if it was or not. They do state that at the beginning, black people did have really good test scores and stuff, and they were just doing really good in school and stuff. And that's a good example of what fighting for fairness and justice can get you. They went through something that was not in their favor, and they won it. And that shows what people have struggled for throughout years. They struggle for freedom, and because freedom is the thing that everybody wants. Freedom is the thing everybody needs. And the only way and the reason they struggle for that freedom is because it is fair to them. It is their God-given right for freedom. Everybody is the same, and that's what people see when they want freedom.
And that's a wrap. So we have Chinese food now.
We have Chinese food now.
We're having
Seriously.
We know we're doing this podcast. We don't have to.
We told you, Ms. Swagger, that we would have Chinese food. The only thing is we're not in our boxers.
We substituted that for Fortnite.
No.
Okay. So, someone please read me the question.
Okay, Anthony.
Yes.
The question here is, in what ways does the struggle for freedom change with history?
Perfect. Now, with the struggle of freedom, most important part is that exactly what is freedom? What freedom is when everybody has equality, when everybody has the equal rights, when everybody is not told what to do, but also when it is, everybody has the same thing.
When everybody is given their basic human rights and allowed to live their lives the way they should.
Exactly, I love it. Now, with struggles with that, we have struggles with different races, obviously, most important black people, when it came to slavery, how it says in, which one, from what to the slave is the 4th of July, obviously, in that story we learned that, speech actually, we learned, we read about how Frederick Douglass saw, the white people celebrating this holiday. In reality, the black people weren't because, they were still enslaved. It wasn't really freedom for them, even though the whites thought it was freedom. And pass a little Chinese. Now, the struggle there was exactly the same thing, inequality, different views. Another one is, another great thing that happened later was the second inaugural speech when, our president, the 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, talked about this and said, this is wrong. Obviously, doing the same thing as Frederick Douglass doing, saying the same things, bringing up the same points, which was really good because now we have it from a different person seeing the exact same thing, which is really good. Then it comes, obviously, the Brown Brown versus education. I forgot.
Brown versus Board of Education.
Thank you.
Precisely. We all know the stuff. It's just we get a little jumbled up.
We're reading Chinese food. Very perfect time. With that, the struggle there was again not having the same rights, not having the same, opportunities, like how Jose said, not being able to have the same basic. That's my fourth. Basic rights as the white people did. Yes, they had the same opportunities, supposedly, but they were just treated worse. The students that were black were treated worse, and in their own school, segregated, which is not really good. And as you see, and the way, the struggle for freedom, the struggles change with history is, different people and different viewpoints as new things come up, as new things comes down. Obviously, with slavery left, that struggle became less, but then a new struggle came up with, education now. Always does the struggle for freedom change with history is when new things are developed and when old things are eradicated. It's something very interesting and very crazy.
Yes.
Nice.
By the way, are you keeping time?
I am not keeping time. I think let's go a little bit more. 1 minute.
Okay.
I like this.
Yeah. It gives us enough time now.
I think it has been 5 minutes so for you.
Yeah. I know mine was, because I tried to wrap it up right there, but I was like, nah, you know what, I gotta add just a little bit more just to get my point across.
Exactly. So to add a little bit to my point where, another great point is with the Asians in the U.S. Obviously, we're knowing that now, Ms. Ballard, how Japanese, even though, and that's it. Guys.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Diaz, and today I'm going to be answering our question, and that is, what motivates people to struggle for change throughout history? And my answer to that is it all depends on the motivation of the person or the group of people that want the change. And in the United States, one example of that is equality, wanting equality. And we can see that mostly with African Americans. In general, they're the ones that struggled and fought and wanted the change. So the blacks are the ones that struggled the most for change, and their motives were equality. And we can look at various examples, but one example is a speech from Frederick Douglass, and he talks about the 4th of July, and in his speech, which is titled "What to the Slave is the 4th of July," he says that the slaves are not able to participate in this holiday because they themselves are not free, they are not equal, they are not able to celebrate because of those reasons, because free people are able to celebrate that but not slaves, and he is upset with that. So he wants equality for slaves so they are able to enjoy the glorious holiday that is the 4th of July, being able to celebrate independence from the British. Another form of argument for equality is the case Brown versus Board of Education. Now, this is about the Brown family, and the Brown family is very upset with the fact that the school system does not allow black children. Their child is black, especially. I forgot to mention that they're black, but their family is black. Of course, they'll be upset during this time period that their school is not letting them go to the same school as whites. So they're forced to go to a different school because of segregation. They're clearly upset with that. So they bring their problem to the court, and the court decides, in their opinion, that these systems are not equal. They don't help anybody. Although they say separate but equal, it is truly not equal, because for example, white schools have back then had better teachers, better conditions, was more cleaner probably, better payment of teachers, better wages, and students got to learn much more than the black students. And compare that to the black schools, they weren't able to learn as much, and they didn't have the same type of curriculum maybe, and the teachers especially were just paid poorly. And in that fact, the Brown family just wants equality in terms of education. They don't want to mess that up for their child. They want equal education for their child as well. And a great struggle in our history, another great struggle is the Civil War. And that brings us to Abraham Lincoln's inaugural speech, where he mentions that the slaves had a great interest, and that causes the war to start. And for good reason, because they are the ones that deeply want the change. They want the change. They want the change to be equal, to be free, to have equal rights, and to just be able to live life as a free man or a free woman. And as I said before, the question, I'm going to restate the question, what motivates people to struggle for change throughout history? That motivation is based on equality, having equality in all aspects of life.
Hello and welcome to our final podcast, where this person who's talking is Omar. Thank you.
Omar Abdel Kareem.
Everything's gone. This is our last final, so let's give it all to Omar.
Okay, Omar.
Alright.
The essential question is, in what way freedom change with history?
Alright, well, history is a concept that we can all think about for long-term and short-term consequences. For lots of events, many motivations and struggles affected different and various forms of changes. So what motivated some people to struggle for the change is to gain freedom and to gain the full rights as other individuals in the same society, as well as full and equal representation of the constitutionality of the rights provided for the people, as written by the founding fathers. And Frederick Douglass, an orator and a writer in the 19th century, he argued how not all the people were represented and were given the full rights as other individuals in the society. He always struggled and fought in order to gain the rights that he felt like he would have naturally gained. He educated himself to write in order to become a better orator and a better writer, and he traveled to the north in order to express his voice to the people. And he argued how the 4th of July does not represent everybody in the United States, and is only specified to certain individuals in the United States. And he expressed how millions of people suffer on that day, the day that which white individuals celebrate and rejoice, while others mourn and suffer from the labor of that other individuals forced them to do. Abraham Lincoln also, he was motivated to cause and provide alterations and changes to the United States in general. As he gave his second inaugural speech, he depicted how the Civil War was a cause of societal issues between the people in the United States, and how the country was divided due to those consequences. He also showed how there can be only one solution, and this solution is unification between the individuals and the unification between the South and the North. He also depicted how the people can join under God's given rights and the natural rights in order to form a better country. In Brown versus Board of Education, Earl Warren said segregation of children in public schools solely on the basis of race deprives children of the minority group of equal educational opportunities, even though the physical facilities and other tangible factors may be equal. He also argued how the educational conditions were different and not equal as how they were supposed to be, separate but equal. However, they were not expressed equally across the nation to different and diverse individuals in various societies. And this caused the Brown versus Board of Education to take place in 1951, as the Brown family faced an issue into getting into school, as the girl was not given her full right to gain better educational opportunities and to strive her conscientious mind to cause a change in the society. And so this is what motivated certain individuals is to fight and persevere to gain more educational opportunities and educational rights as others, equally and similar forms.
Is that it?
Yeah.
You know, that was very brilliant.
That was very nice.
That was very nice.
Thank you.
Very well
Yeah.
thought out, very articulate.
Thank you.
Very articulate. Now,
Alright.
let's just have a little gameplay of Fortnite. Okay. Thank you, Miss Walker, Mrs. Walker, for everything. Thank you,
All right.
Mrs.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
having me, guys.
Best English teacher ever.
Best English tango ever.
Yes. The
Yes.
best. The
Okay.
best.
Goodbye.